from Hollywood, I'm Martin Grove, welcoming you to our Screendollars podcast, Box Office Autopsy. In today's conversation, we'll look at the marketplace and analyze how things are going and where they're going. Joining me on the line now is Screendollars box office guru Dick Walsh. Between Dick's career in exhibition, including as film chairman of AMC Entertainment, and my own days talking about movies on CNN, Entertainment Tonight, and as a Hollywood Reporter columnist, we've logged nearly 100 years in Hollywood. That doesn't mean we're always right, but we've definitely got a few opinions to share. A James Bond weekend. Bond finally here, No Time to Die, delayed about 19 months in opening, and Dick, $56 million. It's not Marvel territory, but it sure sounds good to me.
No, at this time of year, the $56 million is very needed, and it's a great opening, and, you know, in the Bond history, it is his second lowest opening. Only at Casino Royale, that did $40 million in the first 3 days, has one of his pictures open less than this. But we're going to do just fine with this picture opening at $56 million.
Well, you know, it is important, I think, for us to specify that, again, this isn't a Marvel movie that's targeted to under 25 males. This is a picture that's appealing, let's say, to 45-plus men. And that's a different crowd. And one of the key factors that works against No Time to Die is the running time, 2 hours and 43 minutes. It's the longest James Bond film that there ever has been. It's number 25 and the longest ever. So theaters, as you well know, can add another showing, maybe a late night showing, but that isn't going to get the 45-plus crowd out the way it would get the under 25s out.
No, you're exactly right, and losing a showtime is very critical, and it certainly had to hold back the gross of this picture. I guess it took that long to say goodbye to Daniel Craig.
Well, Daniel Craig had the role for 15 years. He's played it longer than anybody else. Including Sean Connery, Roger Moore, who had good long runs themselves. But he has done a great job, and when he started out, they said, he wasn't Bond, he was bland. And they complained he was blonde, not Bond. All the jokes you can think of. But they soon learned that Daniel Craig brought his own style to Bond, and it worked very, very well. Now, let's take a listen quickly here to the director of No Time to Die. That's Cary Fukunaga talking about, well, guess who? Daniel Craig. Here he is.
He is my favorite iteration of Bond, and I think it's because of the complexity he's brought to the character and the vulnerability and the sort of the brutal sort of potential for violence. I think it's an interesting combination there, and to be able to take those skills and apply them now he has wisdom, right? He has all this experience he's brought in over the last 15 years of doing these films, not only on the filmmaking side, but also on the character side. And there's a lot to play with there in terms of how interesting and how multifaceted of a character he is now.
That's Cary Fukunaga, the director of No Time to Die, and he certainly liked Daniel Craig's performance. And, Dick, I may be off base here, but who knows? Cary Fukunaga, it's a name that not everybody recognizes. He's best known for directing a 2015 drama that Netflix did called Beasts of No Nation. Now, where am I heading here? The star of Beasts of No Nation, which I don't think people much remember right now, was Idris Elba. Now, we need a new James Bond. there has been talk for years that Idris Elba would be great. He would be the first black James Bond. And a lot of people think he'd be fabulous in the role, black, white, gray, green, whatever. So, if we were to guess that the producers, Barbara Broccoli and Michael G. Wilson, might be thinking of having Cary Fukunaga come back to direct another Bond film, this has happened in the past many times, he might bring in Idris Elba as the new Bond. Now, am I crazy or am I a psychic?
No, I think you've got an angle there that not too many people are looking at, and having seen the picture, the direction is right on, and the picture really delivers for Bond fans. And even though we've been critical of the 2-hour and 43-minute running time, you might be stuck saying, that's how long it actually took. And the idea that he and Idris Elba have worked together in the past, we assume they got along, and I think you've got something here.
Well, look, somebody's got to replace Daniel Craig, and as we all know, any actor in any film franchise is identified with that role, and you figure, well, he's the only guy on the planet who could play it. But in the case of Bond, we shifted so well over the years from Sean Connery to Roger Moore, a quick stop with George Lazenby, and on to Pierce Brosnan later on. And they all work very, very well. But coming back to Daniel Craig, he was apparently very well liked by the actors that he worked with. And here we have a soundbite from Ana de Armas, who co-stars in No Time to Die. And here she is talking about Daniel Craig as James Bond.
I think Daniel is one of the best James Bonds ever. Obviously, he has the sophistication and the strength and the attitude and the talent, but I think personally something that makes him stand out more and makes the character more special is, and maybe people don't perceive him that way, is how funny Daniel is. And he has this sense of humor and this charisma that makes him create a character that's very relatable and real.
Ana de Armas there talking about Daniel Craig making his final appearance as James Bond. Back in the real world now, one of the things about the Bond franchise that people certainly lose track of is that it has never been a domestic-driven franchise. It's always been internationally driven, always performed better abroad than it does here. Looking back, for instance, the last Bond episode was 2015 Spectre, did $200 million domestic, but it did $880 million overseas. That's just over $1 billion globally. So we're looking now at how No Time to Die is performing, not just here in the U.S., but how is it doing internationally? It did $89.5 million this weekend in 66 territories, and that gives it a international cume of just over $257 million, and if your adding machine is still working, $313 million plus globally. So that's a pretty good start for 2 weeks, is it not?
Oh, yeah. This is a billion-dollar franchise, and when we talk about the Bond pictures, this one will live up to the expectations. And I see this thing with very strong legs. It's going to hold in very well, and the final gross will definitely start with a $1 billion in front of it.
You know, your point is a very good one there about the long legs. This picture, as I said when we started talking, is different from the Marvel movies. Marvel movies are front-loaded. The young guys want to be there opening night. They want to be the first to see it. It's exciting, and that's what drives that business. But in the case of an older male appeal film like No Time to Die, if the 45 plus audience doesn't get their opening weekend, then they say, well, we'll see it next weekend, or maybe the weekend after that. We'll see it whenever we have time to catch it. So that translates into great playability, long legs, and that is an important difference between this and your superhero Marvel type movies. Now, internationally, it's a little bit different. The audience is I think, broader, not skewed entirely to the older male crowd that domestically it is. But internationally, it is a very, very accelerated business. And it's interesting that in those 66 markets that I just mentioned, where it did almost $90 million this weekend, China was not one of them. It doesn't open until China until October 29th, and I think it's fair to say that should be the international icing on the box office cake. And Dick, I think we're looking there at a very, very significant global performance. But look, that wasn't the only movie in the marketplace this weekend. There also was a picture called Venom, Let There Be Carnage, and that did pretty well, did it not?
Yeah, it did $32 million to finish second, and it dropped 64%. And anymore, as you say, with these Marvel front-loaded pictures, a drop of 64% is looked like almost as a good hold.
Well, yes, exactly. I mean, I think these days, we saw, look, in the summer, we saw drops of like 78, 79%. But those were pictures that were competing with themselves on day-and-date streaming. And just to take a moment to beat up the day-and-date screening concept again, No Time to Die had the benefit of arriving without being on day-and-date streaming, and the same was true of Venom, Let There Be Carnage, and these pictures both benefited from that. In the case of Venom, globally, it's now done over $185 million, still going strong. I mean, it's got plenty of runway yet ahead of it, and certainly we'll keep an eye on that. But as we look from this week, where the big news was the Bond film, we're now looking to next week, and the big news there is virtually sure to be the opening of Halloween Kills from Universal, Miramax, and Blumhouse. It is, of course, a sequel. It's a sequel to the franchise that began way back in 1978. With John Carpenter's now classic Halloween. And by the way, if anybody listening has not seen the original 1978 Halloween, it is back in theaters this month. You got to check listings and find it, but it's playing in theaters all over the country, and well worth seeing. You certainly will enjoy the new iteration of the franchise if you have seen the original one, not on television, not on DVD, but seeing it in the theater on a big screen will make a big difference. But look, the buzz is for an opening of maybe 40 to 50 million. You think we're going to see that?
I'm calling it around 50 million, and my thought goes here to the fact that this one is going to be streamed. Universal kind of changed their 17-day window position, and they are going to stream this day and date in the theaters and on Peacock. And if you're a Peacock subscriber, you're going to get it for free. This is the biggest title since before Free Guy that has gone to streaming day and date with the pictures. We've had a nice clean run here, as you point out, on the Bond picture, on Venom, on Shang-Chi, on Free Guy, and now we're going to have some competition again with people viewing it in the home.
Well, I think what's going to work in favor of exhibitors showing Halloween Kills is that, look, bottom line, it's a horror movie. And people who like horror movies especially like being in the theater and having everybody screaming at the same time. there is this sort of collective enjoyment of being frightened together. I don't know about watching alone at night on a couch in a dark room in your house alone. That doesn't quite equal the same experience. So I don't know. I think it was a mistake to put it on streaming, and I think that they panicked wrongly, because the marketplace has come back very, very well. But we certainly will find out. Now this film is driven for fans not only because it's a very good horror genre picture and series, but because Jamie Lee Curtis is still there playing the same role she created 43 years ago, Laurie Strode, in the original from John Carpenter. And this picture, Halloween Kills, is especially interesting because there's another actress returning who in the original was only 8 years old. Now, she turned out to be a very well-known character from the Bravo series, sort of guilty pleasures here, Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, and she is Kyle Richards. We happen to have Kyle Richards here talking about what it was like to make this picture in 1978 when she was only 8 years old and just starting out.
When I think of myself as a little girl, 8 years old, shooting Halloween, I think of just, being on the set and not really getting what we were making. I was having fun, honestly. It was another job I was doing. I remember Jamie Lee being really, really sweet with me and very maternal for such a young girl. I didn't know what I was doing until I saw it. Then I was like, what on God's green earth?
And that was Kyle Richards looking back at the original Halloween in 1978. She was 8 years old on screen at the time. So there we have it, and we will see, Dick, how Halloween Kills performs, and if indeed it is streaming that kills Michael Myers, hopefully not. But look, it's not the only picture arriving next week. The marketplace is not just limited to one film at a time anymore, and next week is also going to bring the Disney and 20th century historical drama The Last Duel, which is the new film from Ridley Scott, well known as the director of pictures like Gladiator, Thelma and Louise, and of course the original Blade Runner. And this is a picture that certainly isn't going to be the size of a Halloween Kills, but there could be an audience for this, I think.
Well, I think 10 to 15 million is not out of the question. Historical dramas have a tendency to open slow, and if they're very good, will build. Here's a change in strategy at Disney where they were going to stream it, and they had decided that the final pictures of the year will not stream. So the theaters are going to get the benefit of this one all by themselves, sort of a reversal of Universal and Halloween.
And there is plenty of star power to help sell it. Matt Damon, Adam Driver, Jodie Comer, and Ben Affleck. And there's an audience for that kind of star power. So we'll see. And as to whether it's a good movie, well, here is a guy to talk about that, to review the movie. As a matter of fact, it's Ridley Scott. It's his own movie, and guess what? He likes it. Let's let Ridley talk.
The film is really good, if I may say so myself, with some stunning performances, and it's a fantastic story, which consolidates very dramatically and very well into a great truth. So if you don't like it, you got to be crazy.
That was Ridley Scott and his review of The Last Duel, so we'll see if moviegoers and critics agree when we talk about it about a week from now. But I think that one of the things to just close with here today on Box Office Autopsy is the fact that October is showing a lot of, let's call it October oomph. The September situation where you had one picture, Shang-Chi, driving the box office for the entire month and everything else opening dead on arrival, we're not seeing that. And so October is certainly, I would say, a much better month than September.
Yeah, absolutely. Last weekend was 73% of the same weekend in 2019. This weekend is 76% of the same weekend in 2019, and October has definite momentum behind it. And with next weekend and then the following weekend with Dune, I see October as a very strong month.
Yeah, and also as October ends, we're going to start to see the arrival of some of the potential awards candidates. Dune is certainly being talked about as a Best Picture contender. On October 29th, Focus is opening last night in Soho. Edgar Wright directed that. There's a lot of good buzz about that, and the materials look very good. November 5th, Neon is opening Spencer. That is the story of Princess Diana, Kristen Stewart starring in that role. And Disney has The Eternals, the new film, Marvel film from Chloe Zhao, who won the Best Director Oscar last year for Nomadland, which also, of course, won Best Picture. So we'll be getting into awards territory, and we'll have plenty to talk about here on Box Office Autopsy. So, Dick, thanks for checking in again and for the insights. And as for you listening out there, thank you very much. And please come back and join both of us again a week from now.
Time now for our film flashback look at what was happening in Hollywood right around now, way back then. Let's set today's time travel dial for October 10th, 1963. Dr. No may have been the first Bond film, but it was From Russia with Love that launched the franchise when it world premiered in London October 10th, 1963. Now, 58 years later, Bond episode number 25, No Time to Die, from MGM Universal and Eon Productions, is opening domestically after a powerhouse international launch last week. But none of this would ever have happened had things gone differently with Russia. United Artists had surprise success opening Dr. No in U.S. theaters in May 1963. Made for about $1 million, it had domestic film rentals of $2 million, leading quickly to a $2 million sequel, Russia, which wound up doing $25 million domestically. Producers Albert R. Broccoli and Harry Saltzman chose as their second Bond movie Ian Fleming's fifth novel, From Russia with Love, because then-President John F. Kennedy had told Life magazine it was one of his 10 favorite books. Terrence Young, who directed Dr. No, came back, as did Sean Connery to play 007. Also returning were Bernard Lee as Intelligence Chief M and Lois Maxwell as the indispensable Miss Moneypenny. Desmond Llewellyn came on board as the equipment officer from Q Branch and would later become famously known as Q. One of the key differences between Fleming's 1957 Cold War-set thriller and the 1963 film was that in the novel, Bond's up against the Russian counterintelligence agency SMERSH, while on screen he's battling the evil international criminal group Spectre. Fleming created Spectre in '59 as Bond's new nemesis because he thought the Cold War was ending and he wanted his spy stories to stay relevant to their times. Spectre's headquarters in the film is actually Pinewood Studios' administration building. Another difference with the book that would have rewritten Bond history came in April '56. when Fleming changed the ending of Russia so that Bond died at the hands of Smersh agent Rosa Klebb, Lottie Lenya in the movie, who kicks Bond with a poisoned knife concealed in her shoe. Fleming, who'd become disenchanted with his spy stories, wrote, "Bond felt his knees begin to buckle. He pivoted slowly on his heel and crashed headlong to the wine-red floor." Fortunately for Bond fans, Fleming changed his mind about killing 007. In January '57, he began writing his 8th Bond novel, Dr. No, in which Bond recovers from being poisoned and is sent to Jamaica, where we now know Ursula Andress awaits. And that's it for today's podcast. Thanks for listening. We'll be back with another box office autopsy next week. In Hollywood for Screendollars, I'm Martin Grove.